Alright, so welcome back. In the recap for last week's video, I was about halfway at the garage. This video will be talking about the LTTR. So what is that? That is the long-term thermal rating. A lot of data is included for spray foam because of the fact that a lot of people are wondering what happens with that trapped gas over time. So they take a measurement of when it's installed and then they compare it to 15 years down the road, which is pretty interesting to look at. And so there's that value. With the loose fill insulation, I'm going to be focusing on the loose fill insulation for this video because it's what I know a lot more of, and it's what I've been doing for the past 3 years. I've seen thousands of attics. Chinny Dad is the one that brought this question up. Does anybody know the LTTR of loose fill insulation? And I went and responded that I believe in my educated guess is that it's the R value of that's on the sheet that's provided with all the material. And I base that answer because number one, loose fill insulation, when it's installed and over time, it doesn't really lose its consistency because between the fibers, there's ambient air. So that doesn't really change over time. It's still ambient air. The one thing, obviously, it's going to have its cycles through the seasons, so it's going to get colder and it's going to get warmer, and therefore in between the fibers, obviously you're going to have air that's going to compress or gets colder, and so it condensates a little bit. It starts to compress, and then after that, when it gets warmer, obviously then it starts expanding a little bit, right? Loose fill insulation, right in between, say a depth of 1 foot, you're going to have a slightly different temperature than right at the attic, because again, it's the separation between the attic's airspace and then your interior house airspace. So obviously there will be a temperature difference right in the middle of your insulation. That's one of the reasons why I said that the LTTR of loose fill insulation would be that number that they post on the sheet that you place after every time I'm done installing right at the attic hatch. I staple that on. One thing that I would say is that it's obviously easier. When I'm comparing closed cell spray foam to loose fill insulation, it is easier to measure that LTTR on site, say, because closed cell spray foam is easier to sample. You can cut it out of a wall, and then you can go back to a lab, and then you can measure the R value there. Whereas with loose fill insulation, that's very close to impossible, because as you're scooping it up, then you're disturbing its consistency right away, maybe crushing it, whatever it is. So it's, like I said, it's almost impossible to measure that difference between when you install it and when you finish it off. You'd have to install that loose fill insulation at a lab setting and then basically let it sit for 15 years, try to simulate, the temperature differences in the attic, that sort of thing, within a lab setting. And as far as I know, that hasn't been done. Again, some people may have more information. That's great. You leave a comment down below as to where you can find the information. That would be very helpful for the users or the viewers here. Now, second topic, the second item that I want to bring up is I have been in homes after 10 years of having the loose fill insulation installed, or even as far as 20 years. The fiberglass insulation, I will tell you, looks very much the same as it did even when I install it. There's no disturbance aside from the dye disappearing for Owens Corning, because obviously when you install it, it's pink when you see it in all my videos, but then over time the dye does disappear. And it becomes white. The reason I know that is because when I dig, sometimes even 1 or 2 years later, the dye will disappear right at the surface. I dig down, and then there's pink still present at the bottom insulation, closer to the ceiling or the drywall. So the things that I've seen that would change the consistency of blown fiberglass insulation is, say, excess vapor released into the attic space from, say, the home, from unsealed heat sources like a chimney, bathroom exhausts, dryer exhaust, kitchen hood exhausts. Mice and other critters are also very popular, creating tracks and crushing the insulation. So mice can be really bad because they make holes everywhere the size of toonies. And so those are nice chimneys for the heat to come into your home during the summer or to leave your house during the winter. If you do see that, you definitely want to get that loose fill insulation repaired, replaced. So all in all, the LTTR is like the name implies, right? It's what you will get after you owned your house for 15 years. So we're about at the end of it here, and so this in total was about 2,800 square feet, including the garage. Doing the final check here for the depth, and yeah, we've got the right depth. There we go. Right across the board. Tried to cover some of the spots there when I saw wood. Tried to cover it with the blowing, as you can see. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and give a nice like to it if you did enjoy it. It tells YouTube that you did like this video, and it pushes it out to others that are viewing a similar topic. As well, if you haven't done yet, click on that subscribe button so that you don't miss any further installation tips and walkthroughs. I will see you next Tuesday.